Hi, everyone. Let me just say, the non-technical stuff on Safari is great. It's all photography and managing your money and stuff. So, as Rachel said, I work on Radar, and that's where we kind of assess the world of technology and figure out technology's impact on the world. We have a history of doing this. We've done from open source, Web 2.0, big data, which turned into the Strata conference, DevOps, the stuff Tim is doing around WTF and Next Economy. This is all like what comes out of Radar. And what we're doing with Radar is we're trying to provoke discussion, create community, and extend the O'Reilly mission of spreading the knowledge of innovators. And that's why we're sharing this kind of thing with you guys. I've been coming to OSCON since 2003. So I've been very involved in this kind of open source community. And I've been here through Peak T-shirt, Peak Pearl, Peak Beard. It's great to see how it's changed. And as you'll see in these slides, we've got even more changes coming up. So I'm going to be showing some trend analysis from our internal systems and looking at emerging topics. So the thing I'm going to really show is Safari that Rachel was just talking about, and you get the free subscription to. And we use this as one of our measures. We do all sorts of qualitative and quantitative work to figure out what's going on. This is an important one to us. And what I'm going to be showing is search data and content data. And they're a little bit different. Search is really good for like kind of what's happening now, but there isn't as much measure of engagement, where the usage stuff measures the kind of intensity of things working. So that's where we like to combine the two things together. So what is Safari? We know that at our conference, a lot of people don't really know what it is, or think of it as just an online bookstore. What it really is a learning resource, and that's the URL for it. It's got 50,000 titles across all sorts of formats. We've got text, video, and audio, a lot of interactive things around Jupyter notebooks, and real online training where you're doing it live with an instructor. So sign up and check it out. On the platform, and this is the context you need to kind of understand the data, we have about 2.5 million licensed users, 5,100 different group licenses. So this is where there's more than one person at the company. 30% of the Fortune 1000 is on it, and 60% of the customers are bigger than 10,000 people companies. We also have 68,000 individual subscribers from all over. And as they're on, they're doing both kind of linear and non-linear work. They're sometimes engaged in trying to learn something from start to finish. They're also trying to ask questions, and that's relevant to search. So the people come from many different industries, but the top four represent where most people are coming from. And the consulting people are obviously working for other folks and doing all sorts of industries. So we have a pretty wide spread of people who are using it. But having said that, as you look at the data and you think about what I'm showing, it's probably enterprise biased. You also have to think about the maturity of the technology we're talking about, because a newer thing just needs more mind share to figure out. Where something that's been around for a while, a lot of people already know it. The maturity takes some of the time away people need to look. I want to mention that tech takes time. The emerging time is very long sometimes. And as I show things, pay attention to the scale of what I'm showing. So you'll see that I've got a lot of bars going across, and it'll help you give you a sense of how big something is. And I also want to mention quickly on search, it's really a long tail data set. We've had 1.2 million different search terms the first 6 months of the year. I'm only looking at the top bunch, but there's a lot of very specific questions in there. So I'm going to look at top searches, the top topics, programming languages, and a little on MLAI. So here are the top 14 topics. I just want to explain what you're seeing. It's first you see the rank, which is the most searched term, whether the rank changed from this year to last year. The red bars are the order of magnitude. So you can see that Python is much bigger than Spring. And then the bars to the right are the rate of change year over year. So I compared the first 6 months of last year to this year on it. So this style of slide will be all through it. And while I'm showing a lot of charts, I will kind of wrap this up in a nice package so that you'll get the main results. The two kind of most surprising things, and surprise is the friend of all analysts, are Kubernetes and blockchain with big growth. Maybe they're not a surprise because they're both interesting topics, but I'm going to bring up Kubernetes at the end because I think it's an important part of a hypothesis we're starting to draw from this data. Now, if you're looking through the list, you'll probably say, gee, you got Spring and Java. We've got 3 different JavaScript things. Maybe you should group those together. And if we do, what we find is JavaScript is most popular, and then Java comes in second. Now, the one thing I want to note here, because I'm going to tie this together, is that JavaScript is a little down where Java and Python are up. And remember, this is in search. And we think that's going to point to something that I said I'll bring up when I go through the usage data next. Now, if we look at the top programming languages, the ones that we think are kind of emergent here are Go and Kotlin. They're both kind of growing. They're not as big. You can tell from the rank and the magnitudes that they're a little smaller, but the growth shows that there's a kind of increased interest in them. If we go further down the list, what we find is Rust growing pretty well, and C with some surprising strength. Now, we're not really sure what's behind that, but I started off as a C programmer, so I love C. But with the things that might be going on there is around ML. There's a lot of people who are using the Python bindings and so forth to use ML. They are also writing some of the code in C. Now, the one thing that, as someone who's been here for so long, is seeing PHP, Ruby, and Perl kind of lower down in the list. I remember one time in like 2005 when Guido from Python and Larry Wall from Perl and Mats from Ruby were walking down this street here, and in such intense conversation, they almost got hit by a tram. And I was thinking, wow, if that happened, there goes open source. But things have changed a lot, and I think this shows what's going on. Now, in ML, clearly this is a very hyped subject, but I think it's a real subject, and a lot's going on. We're already seeing maturity around stuff like TensorFlow having a bit of a decline, and things like Keras, PyTorch, and reinforcement learning getting the strength. And we think those are 3 things that are really worth paying attention to. Now we're going to talk about usage. Usage means how much people are engaged in the actual content. So like measuring what people are reading. And we're going to kind of cover similar topics. Now, and I wish I had said this before on the search slide, every one of those topics in that top 14 was open source or open source dominated. And even here, 3 of the subjects are open source, and 4 of the 11 of them are dominated by open source. So that means 7 of the top 11 things people are using are basically in the open source realm. And not a surprise in some ways, but AWS in the cloud, and further research showed that the cloud stuff is important in other topic areas. Surprising strength, given how long it's been around. It's almost acting like an emergent technology. We think the cloud has a lot of legs and will be taking a lot of time to unfold, particularly as companies figure out what they can do or what they can't do around it. And ML and AI, it's a big subject now. I mean, these are the top things people are looking at, and it's the 4th biggest thing, and it's gone up 3 things. I think it shows that there is some strength, and people are making a pretty big commitment to it. When we look at the programming languages, we see very similar patterns. In this case, Java, it's up with pretty good growth year over year. Same languages are showing some growth further down the list with Go, Kotlin, and Rust. In usage, both Kubernetes and blockchain are up quite a bit. For us, this is pretty big growth, particularly blockchain up 4.5%. What's interesting about blockchain is that it's not only up, it's up a lot more than Bitcoin is. So our community is really thinking about it from a development standpoint and not an what they call IPOs, whatever the investment thing that people do with Bitcoin. So to wrap things up, open source is a really big topic. All in search terms is all open source, even in usage, a real thing of open source. In languages, we saw that 3 languages being at the top, Python, JavaScript, and Java, and a little bit different patterns where Java and Python are growing, JavaScript shrinking a little. Re-emphasize that ML and AI is a major topic, and that the cloud is showing these long legs. Now, here's where this is what Radar does. We see this data. We see that Kubernetes is well up. We know that MicroStrategy, microservices, is something that is important. We think this points to something going on, is that the that's kind of a next architecture hypothesis, that because of microservices, because of containers, Kubernetes as a manifestation that people are really implementing these things, that's what's moving to other languages from JavaScript. So if you have an opinion on that, you should let me know. And with blockchain, it is clear that a lot of people are paying attention to it. We see it both in search and usage. If you thought the Bitcoin world is silly or whatever, it might be time to start thinking about blockchain as a different thing, that a distributed ledger might be something worth your time and thinking about how it might interface with what you're doing. So I've thrown up a lot of data. If you have any questions or comments, you can email me or just stop me while I'm walking around. Thanks for your attention.